Okay, welcome to all of you. I'm very glad that you're coming to learn a little bit more about the Before We Get to Mars project, and especially thank you to those of you who are online, because I know that with the weather, there are more people than usual joining online. So for those of you online, we want you to know that in the chat of the YouTube feed, you can ask questions, and we will try to address those as we go along, or at least at the end when we're taking questions. So if you do have a question online, please just write that in the chat box, and Chris Kapkar is going to be responding, and he'll pass on messages if needed. And with that, I think I'm going to steal a little bit of Penny and Desiree's thunder, because I'll just mention at the beginning that this whole Before We Get to Mars project began a few years ago when I encouraged the congregation to adopt a signature mission project. The idea is that there will be one thing that Union Church is known for in the community, and that thing will be about making the world more like Jesus wants it to be. And so we, as you've probably heard, we went through a long study, considered many different options, and we settled a few years ago on early childhood education, and we are, after some bumps in the road, as we have called them, we are in the process of taking a significant step forward. This, though I wanted to add, is not the end of the process. The Before We Get to Mars project, the main goal is to transform the landscape of early childhood education in our region. And one preschool in one town is not going to do that. There's lots of other avenues we can pursue, both with additional sites perhaps in the future, and with advocacy, and with education, in order to really make a large-scale difference. And so this is a big step on the journey, but hopefully Before We Get to Mars, it's just one step. So again, if they repeat a little bit of that, sorry, but I wanted to mention it. So Desiree and Penny have been very active in this project, and so we are very glad for their leadership, and want to thank you for all that you have done and for this presentation today. Thank you.
This is a very exciting time for Union Church. Before We Get to Mars is our pet name and our wonderful name for this project. Outside of Union Church, we're known as Union Church Early Childhood Initiative. These are the leaders that have been involved in this project. We have our leadership team, and I want to give a special shout out to Jennifer Keldall, Mary Sue Honig-Schmidt, and Rob Kniffer. They have been the core team on the ground from the very beginning, literally on the ground. We tease that Mary Sue's car can make it to Summit all on its own. And the rest of us have been also very involved. We meet once a week. We skipped 1 week, I think, in the last year, and meetings started far beyond that, or before that, I should say. The UCECI team that's listed there in the middle, this has been our advisory board. Also, these people have been on the ground with us in developing relationships in the Summit community and participated in pop-up preschools, which we held in Summit Parks. And our financial team is important because they're making sure that we're making a wise investment for Union Church and checking things along the way. So what is the Summit Project? And we're focusing in on getting us ready for a potential, we hope, very, very likely purchase of a building and a preschool right within the community of Summit. We, as Mike said, had focused on early childhood for all, and Summit was chosen as a place in which we could start and make inroads in the community, partner with the community, and build relationships and engage ourselves there as a whole congregation, because we see the potential for each member to share the gifts they have in involvement there. So we built relationships with government leaders, business leaders, and the school leaders there, and the families in the community. As I mentioned previously, through the pop-up preschools, we held 6 of them in the Summit Parks. And we went on an extensive search that lasted over 3 years. Our original plan was to find something to lease. There are a few of those properties that we examined, shown at the bottom of this slide. Those are just some of them. And each time we felt there was a viable opportunity to lease, we did research and got estimates and found out how much it would cost to make it adaptable for a preschool situation. We were just about ready to give up on Summit because we could not find anything to lease, as attached as we were to the community. And then we learned of a property that was for sale. And this is a current preschool. It's on Archer Road in Summit, and it's about a 17 to 20-minute drive from Union Church. These are pictures of the inside of this facility. As you can see, it's currently very well adapted for what our use would be also. There's a certified kitchen, and there is a bathroom that's adapted for preschool use. One of our surprises, a little detour on our journey, was that we found out that this preschool is currently operating as a Polish language school. And that was a surprise. We know that the families that are currently taking advantage of this live 30 to 45 minutes away from Summit. Once there was a large Polish community within, or Polish population within the community of Summit, and now not so much, but there are families who have been attached to this school for 20 years. And so they bring their children there to learn the traditions, the language, and the culture. Summit is an area where there is definitely a need. There's a need because we estimate there's about 1,000 children 5 and under who are, in that age range for needing childcare, needing preschool or early childhood programming, and only about 55 spots are available that are licensed spots. Those 55 do not count the 76 spots that are available in Happy Days Preschool, the location that we're looking to purchase. But as I mentioned, those 76 spots aren't currently serving the community. We've been very engaged in relationships with the School District 104 in Summit, and they are looking toward us as potential partners. They have a preschool program that could serve 170 students in a half-day program, but the families are working families and don't have a spot for their children for the other half of the day. So they are looking for us to be that partner. Another need is presented in this data. So the readiness exams or surveys that are given children early on indicate that about 2/3 of the children are not ready in any of the 3 readiness levels, and very few are ready in all. So we've gotten ready for this potential purchase by incorporating Unidad Preschool. Unidad means unity in Spanish, and very much like Union for Union Church. This is a separate entity from Union Church. It will be owned by Union Church, but for liability purposes, keeping it separate is to our advantage. We realized that the corridor that this particular building and preschool is in was under an ordinance that required new purchases and new businesses that would come in to pay sales and property tax. Because we are a nonprofit and would not be paying those taxes, we needed to apply for an exemption to this, and we were unanimously granted that by the village. We were also unanimously granted our business license, so that we have that in order. And the particular evening that was happening at the village board meeting, the mayor or village president gave a shout out to Union Church and welcomed us to the community. We've put many safeguards in our contract. Rob Kniffer has been key to this, and that's to protect our investment, to secure our investment. We're still in negotiations. We have due diligence to work through, and we had at one point been hopeful that we would be ready for a congregational vote on this purchase at our annual meeting in a couple of weeks. That vote, not the meeting, the vote for that may have to be pushed off just a little bit so we make sure all the due diligence is complete. Please stay tuned for that. Jennifer Keldahl is our beloved preschool director here at UCECP, and she's been terrifically involved in this project, and it is planned that she would be our executive director. I don't know how many of you are aware, but in our newsletter that came out a week ago, last Friday, we shared the information that Jennifer's currently experiencing some serious health issues, and so we have our heart with her and our love with her and wish her and her family the very best. As Jennifer is able, we want her advice on going forward, as if any support is needed for anyone to be an interim to help in this regard. But right now, UCECP is being extremely well run, because this is what happens when you have a great leader. You put other great people in place, and it's operating well in her absence. And we have Gabby Para on deck to be our director at the Unidad Preschool. Gabby is a current TWOS teacher in our program here at Union Church, and she was raised in Summit and knows the community extremely well. Our business plan will be slightly different than UCECP. UCECP is a preschool that is run part of the year, and the new program at Unidad will be a full year, full day program to provide the kind of childcare that the families in Summit need. We will transition from it being a Polish school to using our Reggio curriculum that we use here at UCECP, and that will come over time as the children age out and as families may choose to have a different program for their children. We're going to use a state voucher system for allowing the families to have a more affordable childcare program. And some of you may have read recently that the state of Illinois did not fund a school voucher program starting January 1st of this year. That program is concerning K through 12. It does not impact the preschool program. So this will help our families have an affordable option, and also we're going to be applying for grants once we have an address. We'll sustain our program through the grants and also through a reserve fund that we have built up for that purpose. So our purchase cost is $400,000 for the building, which we've been told is a very good price for that particular building, and about $450,000 for the business. And I say about because we are hopeful that amount might go down as we continue our negotiations. At this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Desiree, who can give you an update on our fundraising.
Thank you so much, Penny, for that fabulous background on the project. I have to say I haven't been involved in this very long, so I can't take any credit in the massive amount of work that has been done previously over the last, really, 7 years. I wanted to just read this quote to re-emphasize why Union Church chose this as our mission project. Early childhood experiences from birth to age 8 affect the development of the brain's architecture, which provides the foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. A strong foundation helps children develop the skills they need to become well-functioning adults. This is from the Department of Health and Human Services report on early childhood education from North Carolina. It was too hard to find it from the federal government site. I have worked for the federal government. Sometimes our internet and websites are not as good as state ones. I'm so excited to be a part of this project, this initiative. I think it's something that we can all be really proud of, and I'm also very honored to be a part of it. I think this is a very exciting time for our church. So how are we going to accomplish this? Well, we plan to have the current generations of Union Church support and invest in future generations. So we are putting together teams to meet with members from each generation. We've got the greatest generation, which is 78 years old to 102. Might have a couple people here that are in that greatest generation. We have the baby boomers, which is 60 to 77. Mike has declared he is not a part of the baby boomers. If you have a quarrel with that, you need to chat with him. Then we get into our alphabet soup generation, Gen X, which is 43 to 59, Gen Y, 27 to 42, and Gen Z. We're not going to go after all the Gen Zs because some of them only have allowances to donate, and we'll take that. We'd be happy. But we're really going to address the 22 to 26-year-olds. Our teams will also reach out to the current UCECP parents. Penny and I are taking this roadshow on to meet with the UCECP teachers, and we'll probably at some point do this with the parents. We're also going to reach out to the mother-child groups. For those of you that are familiar, that is a very close-knit community of women who, prior to preschool, met here at Union Church, and they are a dedicated lover of our preschool program. Well, how can you give? All of us are invited to financially participate in this whole church effort. We have also spread out the payments. If you would like to, you can give a one-time payment, or you can spread it out over 3 years. We also encourage people to meet with their employers. Some employers will match double or triple what you're donating. We have an example of that with one Gen Y participant who is donating $2,500. His employer is matching that and adding another $5,000 with a total of $7,500. The good news, we've already raised more than half the funds needed for this purchase. Big shout out goes to Irv for helping get us started in this process. The section in the pie chart that's dark blue is what we need to raise for the purchase of the preschool and the business. I did this chart because I wasn't sure anyone could read those little numbers on the on the pie chart. So we have the Irv Clark match. Thank you so much, Irv. That's so generous. $387,500. We have 2 angel donors who have generously pledged $25,000 and $15,000. We have undesignated non-operational church funds for $59,511,000. And then we have Ministry for Change has pledged $50,000. That still needs to be approved by the Executive Council. Then we have the Gen Y donor that I mentioned before, which leaves us with $305,489 to raise. How can you pledge? Many of you are already using the system Realm. If you go to the church website, you click on Give Generously, and then you scroll down, and I don't know if you can see it in there, but it says the Summit Preschool Initiative. Click that, and voila. You can use the same system you do for your yearly pledge for the church. You can give again one time, or you can spread it out over a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So I'm going to launch this back at Penny.
In the application for the Make a Holy Difference local ministry funds, local mission funds, there was a question: how will the result of your project make the world more like Jesus would want it to be? And to answer this, I thought of the picture that Grant has painted for us as the kingdom of heaven here on earth, as a large table with everyone at the same table. The children and families of Summit and elsewhere deserve the same high-quality early childhood education as is provided in Hinsdale through the Union Church early childhood programs. We can and we will learn from our Summit neighbors when we sit with them at the same table, and we will be making the world better for generations. Thank you. And we're here to answer any questions that people in the sanctuary or people online may have at this time. Well, thank you. Any questions we can answer? Nancy. Nancy asked what language mixture we are anticipating as we move into the Summit community. Well, at first, we will take advantage of the teachers who are bilingual in Polish and English for that part of the population who will continue on as students in that program. And then as needed, we will be adding English, Spanish teachers to the program for the community needs.
And Gabby Parra, who speaks fluent Spanish and will be the director of the program. So yes, it is our goal to hire bilingual teachers for the Unidad preschool.
And I'll just mention along with that, there will be a governing board for Unidad that will be made up of members of Union Church as well as members of the Summit community. So we work jointly on this. Nancy asked if the school district has offered help with the communications. Most definitely. They're ready to direct everyone to us. We're hoping also, as I may have mentioned, to get a block grant with them going forward. So they've been partnering with us, and they're very eager for us to be there with them. Chris, are there any questions from online?
Question online was regarding whether there would be primarily preschool services offered or childcare services being offered. And Mike kind of answered it online, but I thought I'd bring it up with the larger group.
We're serving children aged 2 through 5 prior to kindergarten. It is daycare hours. We're anticipating 7 to 5 or 7 to 6, but we are not just in daycare. We are in the quality preschool, quality early childhood business, and that's the way we're going to be approaching it. Jane?
And you may not have gotten this far, but so that means for part of the day they will have preschool depending on their age, or would it be the entire day?
Go ahead.
Jennifer Keldahl is really the best one to answer that, to kind of envision how the day would play out. But in general, it's important to remember that our program here is based on something called the Reggio program or Reggio curriculum, which is play-based learning. Any of you who have had kids in the program, you understand that the way we run our program, and that we will eventually run that program as well, it's, just because we call it education doesn't mean the kids are sitting down filling out worksheets at age 3. The teachers engage the students in various ways. It's student-led in what they are interested in learning that builds enthusiasm, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are ways to build education into the whole day, even from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Like I said, that doesn't mean they're going to be filling out worksheets the whole time, but the whole thing is education oriented. So I think that's really the way to think about it. Mm-hmm. It's all integrated. It's not like childcare for some hours and preschool for other hours. It's all learning, because that's the way we raise our kids, right? I mean, that's what you want to do when in child development.
Even at that age level, unstructured play is considered academic learning. So we want kids to build that creativity, that problem-solving ability. So even when they are unstructured playing, it will be
play is children's work.
Yep. Catherine, a master teacher, just affirmed that play-based learning at that age is the way to go.
Joel online asked, are there any opportunities to apply for grants?
Yes, we've already pursued that, but we found we need an address, which we will eventually have. And so once we have an address, there are multiple kinds of grants that we can apply for. I just received a recent email from Nadine Woodle, who has knowledge of someone who's willing to work with us to pursue what grants might be best for us. And we have another member in the congregation who's also volunteered to help in the writing of the grants.
And from a fundraising perspective, it's important that we have as many people from Union Church that support the initiative financially. That will really impress grant writers to see that 97% of the church has contributed. So we are looking for, and of course we're going to make these appeals to individuals and the church in general, but that will make us more successful in getting grants. Kirk?
Can you talk for a minute about the ongoing working capital needs and how you're going to obtain funds kind of on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis as you go forward building it out?
So currently, the preschool that is operating in that building is a profitable preschool. So as a nonprofit, we will not be incurring a profit, but we could take a surplus for a while to set aside for ongoing needs or future needs. And so the voucher system is huge, and in many cases that will pay back most, if not all, of the tuition needs per family. And then the grants will fill in, and we do have a reserve fund also that will at least get us started. We won't have the need for purchasing furniture, for the most part. There'll be some purchase needs, but, it is coming fully furnished, so that's an advantage. We do not anticipate this project to be an ongoing drain on Union Church. We anticipate that through the grant system, the voucher system, that will mostly maintain what needs to be maintained going forward. There is tuition, and they pay according to their income ability.
Yeah.
So one of the ways our church can help out is to work with the families to fill out the paperwork that would adequately get the state to see what is possible for each family to pay. Mike?
Yeah, the way the state of Illinois voucher system works is that the money follows the student. The money does not come directly from the state to the preschool, but the money follows the student or the child. And so families apply through the state for funding for preschool education, early child education, and then with that funding, they enroll in the program and are able to cover the cost with whatever they can pay plus the supplement from the state. That's a good question, Kirk. I actually don't know the answer to that. Those of you online, he just asked, so the state writes the check? And the answer is, I don't know. Do any of you know the system well enough?
I know who does know, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
Gabby Para, who will be our director, has already been working with the state voucher system because we have a couple of families utilizing it right now at UCECP. So I'll learn more about that from her.
We also know that the state of Illinois has some history of not being prompt in paying its bills. And so we do believe that we will have enough backup to weather any delays in funding that comes through the voucher program. We anticipate using some of the reserves that we have, both from previous grants that came in because of COVID-related issues, and the the employee retention tax credit program. We should have some additional return money coming back to the church from that we'll use as a pool to draw from should we need to in case of those kind of delays.
And then I'd like to add too, back to the fundraising, which I am in charge of, is that eventually we'll be working with the community of Summit, including their business leaders. I think that one of the most important things about this project is that it's a joint project between Summit and us. We want these two communities to come together at the table, as Penny said, so that will be another funding source eventually.
This is really exciting, so thanks to you guys and all the committees that put a lot of work over the years into this. This is really great. So not if, but when this is a success, does this facility offer the ability to expand and grow the program to serve more?
This particular building would serve 76 students, so that would be a good start. We're, to sidetrack a bit from your direct question, I want to say that we're hoping this is not just seen as a school building, but kind of as a community center. And so we're hoping that we could bring in families from Summit and ourselves to engage with each other for various opportunities in the building. Maybe we could even have church in the building. And so that's one way we can expand it that way. Physical expansion would have to be considered another way at a future time.
I would also say about the fundraising, I would also, or about the funding, I would also say that, if we fundraise more than $850,000, it's okay. And we will apply that to the well-being of the program in the future. And so 850, Desiree has emphasized that 850 is the minimum goal, and anything above that is fantastic.
Catherine?
Sorry. I was just curious, back when you were talking about the businesses of Summit, would it be worthwhile for us to get a couple representatives to join their Chamber of Commerce? That's what we did out in my district. I joined the Niles Chamber of Commerce, and then I was able to recruit a lot of businesses to help me with my robotics team, with the cheer team, with the softball team, with academic endeavors. So it might be worthwhile to consider, I think it's like $150 to join for the year, but if you attend their meetings, then you have businesses that are like, hey, how can I help? Or can I give you these resources? Or can we donate in some way? So it's just an idea.
Thank you, Catherine. The Chamber of Commerce would be a good idea. We have already built relationships with some of the business leaders. And I'll also mention that we've participated in a monthly Summit Community Network meeting, which engages us with the school district and with a wide variety of other nonprofits in the community, and the village president attends that. So we've made some of those connections, but that's a further way and place to look. Thank you. Yes.
What are the insurance obligations, both for the church as well as on-site, that we would be taking on?
We're checking into that. I would turn that over to Rob or Mike to specifically answer, but we are keeping the assets separate, which I know Rob knows, but we did go over that a little bit, Rob, and that will address also the insurance question.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was delayed. I had a meeting with a young family who are joining the church, and we're going to baptize their son soon. So the question was, what are we doing for insurance? Well, one of the strategies is, and I apologize if you said this, but is to keep the building as a separate asset in its own not-for-profit entity, and to keep the business as a separate asset in its own not-for-profit entity, so that, assuming there's some liability in the business, the preschool, that exceeds our insurance coverage, it wouldn't necessarily mean that the building would be available to satisfy a claim. So the limits of the claim would be the value of the business and any insurance proceeds. We would intend to use our church's insurance policy, because both of these new businesses or entities will be owned by Union Church, and issue additional policies for each of these new entities. So they'd each have their own insurance. I'm not an insurance expert, so I'm not sure whether it's a separate policy or coverage as an additional insured or how that's all going to be sorted. But we will make sure that we have sufficient insurance coverage for both the building and the business, and that it will not be available to be used other than for whatever claim there may be. And most importantly, the assets of Union Church will not be at risk if there's some tragedy that exceeds our insurance coverage on either the business or the building.
Thank you. Ed?
Thank you. People online need to hear you.
Well, I'll hold it away from you then. So Rob and Penny, so all contributions that we make are going to stay with this new entity, Unidad Inc., correct? And if they happen to have any like excess, earnings in the future, that money stays with that company, right? It doesn't come back to us, to our church, that is to say.
Good question.
My answer, I'll see what Rob's answer is. My answer is that, as Mike started us out with, the Union Church Early Childhood Initiative is larger than just our Summit project. So our Summit project is where we're starting. So if there were be leftover money, that could go to future endeavors for the larger initiative. Am I answering your question, Ed?
Well, that would be a decision for Union Church as the owner of both the business and the building. In theory, we haven't gotten this far, but there could be revenue to the building if the business pays rent. But the revenue and expense budget that's most important is the business, and frankly, taking in more revenue in tuition and other fees than expenses. If there happens to be a surplus, again, this would be a church decision. I assume that it would be retained in the preschool business. But as the owner of that preschool business, I think that Union Church would be entitled to access those funds either, as a dividend or a loan or some other way if needed. But the strategy and the philosophy has always been to maintain the preschool as a separate entity with its own assets, its own liabilities, and most importantly, retaining any surplus in that business.
Yeah, I would just add that that's consistent with the way that we run the preschool. In those years here, the preschool here, in those years in which UCCP has a surplus, that money is invested back into the program, either through education for the teachers or additional resources for the children. All of it is about making the educational experience better for the kids. And I'm sure that if there are surpluses in that business, that will be the case there as well.
Hi, it's Lisa Speckman. I just want to point out that I think, Rob, that it's important for people to know, and Penny, that if they make donations...
Lisa, who's also on the team.
Yeah, I'm also on the team. If they make donations now, and many already have made donations, it's going to go to the concept, the entity, which has already been created, Unidad, right, which we are the parent company of, Union Church. And it's going to be there for the general uses that we're talking about in purchasing a preschool, because this group has to know that we don't have a signed contract yet. We have a contract, which Rob and other people worked hard on, and they have agreed to it in principle completely, basically, with a couple of minor adjustments to be negotiated. So we think it's going to be good going through due diligence, where we have to see all their financial information and make sure it is what they say it is. But right now, we don't have a signed contract. So I think that this is a broader initiative than one school on Archer Avenue. And I think that's what it's critical for everybody to understand. And we're way down the road hoping that works, but it's not a done deal. Is that fair? Team? Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, I would say it as I am wont to do a little more biblically, and that is that we are talking in the prophetic voice of the prophets of the Bible, as if this is already the case, because we are confident that both Union Church and the divine presence in our midst will help make it happen if it is the right thing to do. But yes, it is still if it is the right thing to do. We have a lot yet to learn from them in regard to due diligence about exact numbers, et cetera, et cetera. The congregation will have a vote in the future as final say about moving ahead. That's why this educational process is so important. But yeah, we tend to speak in the prophetic voice, saying that this is going to happen because we trust that it will.
Any further questions? And nothing else online? So I would say stay tuned. We will keep you informed, and we welcome your questions. So as other questions come up in the future, please be in touch with one of us so we can help answer them. And we look forward to not just your financial participation, but really the engagement that we'll be able to have with the people in Summit going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye, online people.